Hey, good morning. This is Bruce Starr, your state senator from Senate District 12, representing most of Yamhill and Polk County. We this morning have a fantastic conversation with Fire Chief from Polk County, Ben Stange, and we are excited about this conversation. Welcome to the Star Chamber. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Star Chamber. This morning we are going to have a conversation with Ben Stange. Ben is the fire chief at Polk County Fire District 1. And we're really looking forward to this conversation and an opportunity to learn a little bit more about what fire service means and some of the roles and responsibilities that Ben has. One of the things that we've done as we've interviewed and talked to various individuals, has kind of gotten a background, information on your background, kind of where you came from, how it is that you found yourself in the current role that you're in. So just as we begin, just talk to us about where were you from, where'd you grow up? When you were 5-year-old, did you say, I want to be a fireman, or was it something else?
Absolutely. Thanks, Senator Starr, for having me. So I grew up, I'm a family of 6, a few brothers and a sister. We grew up in Portland. And growing up, I did want to go into emergency services, but I always focused on law enforcement. I thought I was going to be a cop. Back then, in order to be a police officer for Portland Police Bureau, which, of course, if you're from a town, that's kind of where you picture yourself. You had to have a 4-year degree. And so when I talked to all of the people I knew who were police officers in the city of Portland, they said a lot of them went to Western Oregon University. So I thought, well, that's where I'll go. So I went to Western. During New Student Week, we had some people come in and talk about the importance of getting involved in community. And one of them talked about how he had started volunteering for the fire district. And I thought, wow, that sounds like kind of a neat idea. I never thought that you could just be a college student and go volunteer to be on fire engines. I've never pictured myself being a firefighter, but what the heck, that'd fill some time. So I started doing that as a volunteer. Actually, 25 years ago this week, wow. I started with Polk County Fire District number 1 as a student at Western. And I was a police cadet up in Portland. And when I talked to law enforcement officers I knew, they'd say, well, what are you majoring in? I'd say, well, criminology. And they said, don't major in criminology. They said, do something that will be more interesting in life, that can take you other places. If you end up being a police officer, you'll learn what you need to learn. Learn something else. And so I had already been taking a lot of Spanish classes. One of my life goals was to learn another language. So I actually ended up majoring in Spanish and communications. And so I continued down that path, graduated from Western. And when I was graduating from Western, I thought, well, okay, now it's time to go start applying for jobs as a police officer. But after several years of volunteering with our fire district and getting to know the people and getting to respond on these calls and have these impacts, and I wasn't ready to just leave it. So I thought, well, maybe I should ride this a little bit further. So I enrolled in Chemeketa Community College in the paramedic program. We have a program at Polk County Fire District number 1. It's a resident volunteer program. So what you do is it's typically for fire science students and paramedic students. And while you're enrolled in school and going to school, you get reimbursement for school and a free place to live at the fire station. Oh, wow. If you pull shifts. Right. So you get this on-the-job experience.
So you're working, right? You're earning your keep to some degree.
Absolutely. You're responding on calls. You're helping out on the ambulances. You're getting on the fire engines. You're getting this on-the-job experience, making all these contacts. And in the meantime, you have a place to live and getting some of your school reimbursed. So it was a great, great program. Graduated from Chemeketa then with paramedicine and got hired up at Metro West Ambulance in Washington County. And I didn't work there too long before I got offered a full-time job back down at my fire district at Polk County Fire District number 1. So I took that, started back at Polk. In the meantime, I had gotten married. My wife was in grad school up at Portland State University. She also ended up getting a job at Children's Day Treatment that was in Rickreall, Poyama. And so we both had jobs down in the Monmouth Independence area. So it seemed pretty obvious
Right.
where we were moving back to.
Sure.
And we have 3 kids, all boys, 4, 12, and 7.
Wow.
It is a busy time in our lives.
Oh, no doubt.
But, in the community we're in, it is absolutely phenomenal. So we're very happy. I joke about, coming into the fire service and being with our organization that, I've had every position. I've been a volunteer. I've been a volunteer lieutenant. I've been a resident. I've been a firefighter. I've been a captain. I've done all of these different things. So it's been a great journey with our agency, and I've absolutely fallen in love with the fire service, with our community, and with our district.
So tell us a little bit about kind of the width and breadth of what your territory is.
So the center of our fire district is Monmouth Independence. We have a station that sits right on the border. Our station is in Independence. The curb to the parking lot is in Monmouth. So we're right there.
Right.
And then we have substations that are all volunteer in the communities of Buena Vista, right along the Willamette there, Airlie, and then in Petey, right in the southwestern corner of Polk County. So in total, we have 185 square miles of fire protection. Most of it's in Polk County. We do have a little bit of Marion County, just a corner there over the Independence Bridge. And then we also have our ambulance service area, which is about 205 square miles. So it doesn't perfectly align with our fire response, but we sort of have that southeastern corner of Polk County. In fact, our district was created in 1985. There was a Southeast Polk Rural Fire Protection District, which was the rural parts, again, that Airlie, PD, Buena Vista, all that area. And then the city of Monmouth had its own department, and the city of Independence had its own department. And in 1985, we had a chief, Milligan, who understood that this was redundant, and we didn't all need our own stuff when we're all helping each other anyway.
Right.
So in 1985, they formed our fire district to encompass all of that area.
So tell the listeners kind of what is a fire district? How is it governed? I mean, you got a board, probably elected.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there are just over 300 fire agencies in the state of Oregon.
Right.
Over 250 are fire districts. So the rest are municipalities, so a city with a fire department or a tribal fire department, things like that. So a fire district is a geographic region that has the ability to tax. So they have their own tax base, and then of course in that, all of those citizens, all those taxpayers also have the opportunity to elect their board. So the 250 fire districts plus in the state all have 5-member boards that are elected every 2 years for 4-year terms. And what we do in fire districts is we elect our board members, and they collect revenue. They make decisions about governance, just like a city council, just like our county commissioners do. But it's for that specific fire and emergency medical services task, which is really unique because it's oriented specifically to an item. So there are large ones. Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue is enormous, as you know.
Right.
Clackamas County Fire is enormous. And then we have smaller ones. We have so many. One of our mutual aid partners, mostly in Benton County, comes into Polk County just a little bit, is Hoskins Kings Valley Rural Fire Protection District, just an all-volunteer fire district with an elected board and whatnot.
So those elected board members, do they generally have experience in fire service?
I think it depends on where you are. I certainly have seen boards with several people in the fire service who are on them. And then there are some boards that have none. And I think there are benefits in both. The board's responsibilities are not so much in the operational part. And some boards across the state have run into issues when they have firefighters who want to be involved in the operational decisions. And so sometimes it's really beneficial to have people from outside the fire district who run for board and aren't focused on what type of hose we're pulling, right? They're interested in how we're spending our money.
Right, making sure that the dollars are being spent well.
Absolutely. The facilities are kept up, the recruitment's going right, we have volunteers, all that type of stuff. But then there's also some institutional knowledge that comes with obviously being in the fire service that is helpful for some board members. I have a couple of board members who have been in the fire service, and they just do a phenomenal job of understanding that difference of, yes, I have this operational experience, but that's not really my role here. It's great background information, But anybody can serve as a really effective board member. It's a great position to run for, to get involved, really to understand local government. You're still dealing with budgets. You're still dealing with all of these important decisions, and it's great training.
Public meetings laws, public records laws.
Absolutely.
Making sure that you're transparent to the public. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's transition just a little bit from that to kind of what's the day in and day out, day to day, process. Or, what does a day in the life of Ben Stange look like?
I guess our district,
or a typical firefighter.
Sure. So all of our firefighters have sort of different tasks. Obviously, we have a paid crew that's on every day, and a lot of their tasks are really more focused on either emergency response or preparedness for emergency response. So they're either responding on emergency incidents, or they're preparing for the next one. Which preparing for the next one can be, checking off your apparatus, keeping it clean, keeping things inventoried, that type of stuff. They also, for our fire districts, and really a vast majority of fire districts, we don't hire custodial staff. We don't hire yards people. It's our personnel that takes care of that.
Right.
So we call them house duties. Right. Every day,
you're sweeping, you're mowing, you're vacuuming, you're making sure that the firehouse is shipshape.
Absolutely. And they take on additional tasks. A lot of our firefighters, almost all of them who are off sort of their first introduction probationary year, take on additional tasks, medical supply ordering, that type of thing that really has an impact on the broader agency. They do pre-planning of different facilities in our district to say, okay, again, that preparedness. If we had a fire here, how would we do this? How can we be better prepared for it? What do we need to put on our computers so that when we're responding, we have information that pops up so that we're better prepared to respond?
What's the typical call look like? I guess the bell rings. I don't know how.
Sure.
Sure. The cell phone alarm rings, or however.
That's a great question.
However it comes in.
No, that's great. So in our station, the alarm goes off, a loud beep. Several things. One of the things that happens automatically is we used to have a gas stove upstairs. Now it's electric, but basically we have a trip thing. This sounds small, but there's a breaker that trips, right? So the kitchen shuts off, which we've lost fire stations in the United States before because that didn't happen.
Right.
So first thing, there's some things that happen internally in the fire station when an alarm goes off. Obviously, everybody goes to the vehicles, the ones that are dispatched to respond, because we have our standard to cover. We have our response standards to get out the door in 60 seconds during the day, 90 seconds at night. So everybody moves to that. So that's sort of the people in-house, what happens with them. But then we have these volunteers. Out of our 84 members of our organization, 60 are volunteers.
Wow.
So you refer to the cell phone. So that is how a majority of our volunteers get notified. Their cell phone goes off, and they drive to the fire station. They leave their families, they leave dinner, they get up from sleeping, they throw on their shoes, and they drive down to the fire station and go inside. We have the turnout room. They get in their gear, hop on the engine. We have some monitors. So when they respond, they hit a button that says they're responding, so everybody can look and know who's coming. We have those monitors up in front of the fire engines,
right?
So that once they're on, they say, "Oh, let's give it, 1 more minute. So and so is coming. I know where they live. They should be here in about 30 seconds. That'll give us the one more person that we need." And then everybody goes out on calls. The way ours is designed is our career staff. We have the capacity to handle sort of the first couple medical calls, or medical calls and maybe a fire alarm that just has a single resource. If we need multiple resources, serious car crashes, fires, things like that, that's when the cell phones go off for our volunteers that say, we're going to need additional help.
Yeah. So what's the ratio between you responding to a vehicle crash as opposed to, the farmer's barn's on fire?
Yeah, our fires represent less than 3% of our total calls, and that's true throughout the United States. A vast majority of our calls, about 3/4, usually between 75 and 80%, no matter where you are going to be medical calls. So that's certainly way different than where the fire service was decades ago. that is a majority of what we're doing now is medical response.
And the vast majority of that, I'm guessing, are vehicle crashes.
Well, aside from if it's not somebody at home with a regular medical need.
Okay.
But when I do tours, when I'm showing people our apparatus, it's interesting you mentioned the motor vehicle crashes, because obviously we have all this hose on top of the engine and stuff. And often I'll open up the side door, which has our extrication tools, our cutters, our spreaders, all that type of stuff to help get people out of cars, to extricate them from vehicles that you can't get yourself out of. And I tell people, all these hoses and stuff get used a lot less than these extrication tools. Highway 99, Highway 51, River Road, all these places in our district that we have pretty frequent vehicle crashes that require those needs.
So the difference between fire service and emergency services, that seems to have blended quite a bit.
A lot.
So, is that, you have a firefighter versus an EMT.
Yeah.
Or are they both one and the same?
That's a great, so the fire service has really, up until a couple years ago, all of our career firefighters were also paramedics. Now we do have some firefighters that are also EMTs. Paramedic is sort of the highest level of that emergency medical responder. We also support all of our volunteers if they want to get their EMTs as well, because like I said, 3/4 of our calls are medical calls. In Oregon, about 20% of our state is covered by fire agencies, municipal fire departments or fire districts, about 20% and about 80% of the population. 20% geographic, 80% of the population. Also in Oregon, the counties are required to draw ambulance service areas to have ambulance response in everywhere in the entire state. So what we have is counties who need ambulance transport, and we have fire districts who are positioned to do that. So oftentimes the fire service, because of what our mission is, right, life, property, and the environment,
right,
we end up being the ones to fulfill that part of the mission, which is EMS. Now, again, that ambulance service area, just like ours, don't necessarily overlap with where our fire district boundaries are, but it's still a service that's being provided in the area. So it gets down a whole rabbit hole of where that goes.
right.
I know in other parts of the state, it gets a lot harder outside of the Willamette Valley, where there are fire districts that are a few hundred square miles in size, but their ambulance service areas are 1,000 square miles.
Wow.
And so they are responding on 911 calls far, far away with their ambulances, which causes a lot of debate about that resource and whether that should be leaving to go do that. But we've decided as a state that ambulance service and emergency medical response is something that we should be able to cover throughout the state. So the fire service has been doing our best to try to be a part in that.
Yeah. I think that leads into a question about special districts generally. You mentioned a little bit about that a little bit ago, but you currently wear a different hat in addition to the fire chief hat, as it relates to the Special Districts Association of Oregon, which is the official organization that represents special districts. Talk a little bit about special districts generally, and what those are and what that means, and then your role in that world.
Sure. So I'm currently the president of the board for Special Districts Association of Oregon. So, we talk about everybody knows a city, everybody knows a county. Hopefully I explained a fire district. So fire district is one special district type. There are over 1,000 special districts in the state of Oregon, and there are 30 different types of special districts. So there's parks and rec districts, library districts, ports, water districts, irrigation districts, transit district. Here in Salem, Chariots is a transit district. There are 911 districts. We like to think that special districts is kind of the most grassroots type of government you can have, because it's a group of people who got together who had a need in their community and formed a district. They publicly elect who the board is. They decide how much and who they're going to tax and what their other fees are going to be, and they have public meetings and decide how they're going to spend that for that specific mission. So 1,000 special districts across the state, 75% of them have fewer than 5 employees.
Wow.
About 50% have no employees, and 4 in 10 special districts across the state have a budget of under $100,000 a year. So these aren't typically, of course, there are some large ones. I think of Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec. Again, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, who are some large agencies, but a lot of them are very rural, very dependent on volunteer agencies where their publicly elected boards are really relying on intergovernmental agreements. They're relying on volunteers. The board members might be the ones, fixing the irrigation pumps. It's really community coming together and using the district as a way to fulfill the broader community need. So it's a very neat thing. Our role at special districts, a lot of times, you referred to, of course, like we said, if you want to get involved in a special district and run for, you're going to learn a lot. Our role in special districts is to make sure that all of our district types are understanding the public meeting laws, are making sure that they're fulfilling their public records requests, are giving them guidance on budget, on personnel matters, all that type of stuff that we want to make sure they're doing right. So you have cities, counties, and special districts are a big part of what make up Oregon. One of the issues I think special districts has is they are by nature outside of most metropolitan areas. Some special districts touch they might have 1 or 2 in some metropolitan areas, but a lot of times, a lot of our elected leaders are from more populated areas, especially ones in leadership. And they don't have that background of being from smaller communities who really rely on these. And so sometimes it seems that special districts can get overlooked, but are really an important part of government that a lot of people across the state rely on every day.
Well, you, in your role as the president of the association, I'm sure you've spent some time in the state capitol building in that role, helping to educate and illuminate legislators and legislative staff about the role of the special district. Talk a little bit about your experience lobbying legislators and spending time in the Capitol.
Sure. When I get the opportunity to talk with legislators or to testify, we have some phenomenal lobbyists who really know how to navigate things, understand intricacies, get to know all you in a way that they understand you. My role I see when I go in isn't necessarily to always, navigate a specific point in a bill. I see my role when I go in. When I feel I've been successful is when I'm communicating with a lawmaker, either one-on-one or even more so in a committee, in a hearing, and being able to tell a story. And watching sort of the eyes go from the laptop. Obviously, everybody's busy and has a million things going on. But I think for me, when I'm able to testify, and at the start, there's kind of a lot going on. You can tell people are distracted. And partway through, I realize I'm saying something they understand. I don't necessarily gauge every success as whether or not the bill passed or the bill failed or whatever. I find a lot of success in finding that other people at least understood our point of view. And I don't think it's a loss every time, even if a bill doesn't go the way that we want it to. If we had an effective conversation, they understand where we're coming from, and they can see validity in where we are. Because I certainly can see, with every bill, I can understand why it's complicated. Most of them are. And so that's the important thing for me about being at the Capitol is that everybody understands. Look, there are rational reasons. Most of us could agree on several of the facts. It's just how we want to weigh them, right. And I just want. That's the important part to me is that people see that what I have and what my weight is does matter to me, That's fine.
Do you have any specific example or experience in the Capitol that stands out? An interaction with a member or a particular time when there was a conversation that seemed to make a huge difference or a major achievement of some kind?
I think it didn't translate to any sort of specific policy at the time, but I want to say it was maybe 6 years ago. We were talking about post-traumatic stress in firefighters, and I had the opportunity to testify about it. And it wasn't easy, obviously, to talk about. One of the issues for our workforce, we have two for our firefighters. One is cancer, that statistically they are exposed to a lot more carcinogens than the rest of the population. And the other is PTSD, because those crashes are graphic. I think about not only our career staff, but our volunteers who go and see horrific sights and go back to the fire station, get in their car and drive to their kid's baseball game and go stand on the sideline and, are asked, hey, is everything okay? And they say, yeah, and have to move on with their day and don't have a chance to process that. And we're getting so much better as a fire service at understanding that and treating our volunteers and our career staff the way they need to be to process through that. But I think at the time, talking about PTSD, there wasn't quite as much awareness. And I remember getting the chance to testify and give some stories that weren't exceedingly graphic, but I think being able to talk about the emotions and the day-to-day and the experience and how that impacts you, I'm very confident. Again, it wasn't attached to any specific bill, but I'm sure that it impacted the way that some of those legislators understood that issue from a firefighter's eyes.
That's good. That's good. I want to circle back now, more specifically back to the Polk County Fire District. What are some of the specific needs that you might have as a fire district right now? Challenges that are right in front of you.
Oh, our challenges right now. I think one of our challenges is in that I'll say it's going to be funding, right? I mean, everybody says that, but I'll say more specifically, it's not the fire side of the funding. It's what I talked about with the ambulance transport. Most agencies are forced to some extent to subsidize their ambulance response from what they're collecting, sort of in the fire. What they collect, really, that a lot of people expect to be used for fires, is being diverted to ambulance. Ambulances are incredibly expensive to run. So when you think about, a paramedic, you have to have two of them, right? It's not like a police car where you can have one person. You have to have two of them between wages, PERS, healthcare, everything else, all the costs.
Right.
So you have to have two. To cover 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's 6 people to cover one ambulance. And then you have, the $300,000 ambulance, the $40,000 gurney, the $50,000 monitor, the $10,000 ventilator, all of these things, the maintenance, the fuel, the 6 tires when you're putting 30,000 miles on a year, all this stuff. It costs about $1 million a year to run one ambulance.
Wow.
And we have our board makes our fee schedule, which is posted in our lobby because it's what it costs to run an ambulance call. But Medicare and Medicaid, it doesn't really matter what we bill them because they pay
whatever they pay.
What they pay,
mm-hmm.
And it's somewhere between $300 and $500 typically for that transport, and it's very hard to keep ambulances sustained with those sorts of reimbursements. So that's probably our biggest struggle. Now, I think broader, I talked about most of our calls being EMS, and the fire is only 2 or 3%. Part of that's because we've done a phenomenal job in the fire service of reducing structure fires. From code changes to inspections, all kinds of stuff. We have reduced the threat of fires. We don't have houses burning down all the time. We don't have commercial buildings burning down. We don't have people we don't have a lot of fire fatalities, which is fantastic. We're starting to transition to do that more with wildland, working with some great new partners like people in the logging industry who we can see from both sides that, hey, we need to be working with you better.
Right.
The Fire 35 that Matt's talked about wildfire funding had some collaborations that 10 years ago you wouldn't have seen, who can see that wildfire is a real issue. And I think the next step in that is EMS and understanding that we have this model that we've gotten stuck with where we send a paramedic or two and an EMT basic on every medical call that is a 911 response. And it's a one-size-fits-all solution, which is everybody goes to the emergency room. And it's not the most practical. It's not the most economical. It's not the most efficient way to run things. So I think that's the next thing, system, as a state that we need to look at is how do we do as a healthcare system? We need to be better partners. Yeah. It's not an efficient thing. So the ambulance is our biggest difficulty in sustaining as an emergency medical response. As far as, what people can do, obviously you can volunteer. A vast majority of fire agencies in the state take volunteers. And if you're not a suppression volunteer, if you can't go inside and fight fire, there's probably other spots you can do. We have support members, run for an elected, board position, do that type of stuff. The biggest thing I would ask though, is just for people to engage with us. We have a newsletter, polk1.org at the bottom of the page, you can sign up. Just to understand, it's shocking how many people don't know that a majority of the people who are helping them out on their emergency are actually volunteers.
Right.
So that's the big, I guess my big plea would not be for any additional money from anybody or anything, and not even a ton of additional time if that's not something you can do right now, but
be informed.
Just be informed. It's really important to us that people understand what we're doing. And that way, if we ask for something, again, even if you don't see that value like we talked about, that's okay. You can understand what the background is and why we're asking for it and make an informed decision for yourself.
So I appreciate this conversation this morning. I think it's been really good. As we wrap up, I want to circle back to Ben Stange, the father that's got three boys that you and your wife are raising. How do you balance your responsibility, your role? I mean, important responsibilities to your community with the responsibilities as father.
So this is probably part of the reason that I've been the fire chief for 8 years. I still have no plans on going anywhere. And part of the reason is the community, the support of the rest of our staff and our board. So Wednesday nights are our drill night. So every Wednesday night, our volunteers and our staff that's on duty drill. So I'll give two examples. So last night, I showed up to our briefing at 6:30, and at 6:45, I had to leave. I went to my 7-year-old's performance for an hour, high-fived him afterwards and everything, got back to drill, no problems. Today, I'll be checking out a little bit early to go watch the first couple events of the 14 and 12-year-olds track meets over at Cascade, but I'll be making it back in time for my board meeting at 6 o'clock tonight. So, one of the great things about our agency is everybody does value family and wants to make sure, hey, if we're going to be effective at work and have effective relationships and be inspired to come to work every day, we have to make sure that home is good.
Right.
And so especially our administrative team all really works together and has great support of our board to say, like, take care of home and you'll do better here. And that is absolutely enormous. And it's
so that's true with the fire chief. I'm sure that's true with your professional staff. It's true with your volunteers. That cell phone rings at 1 a.m. Your volunteer rolls out of bed and more than likely they're leaving a family member or 2 or 3 or 5, in that home as they roll out to go volunteer. So it impacts more than just the individual.
Absolutely. And we talk with our volunteers about that a lot, and their families. When they come to graduation, whenever we do the ceremonies, we don't, for example, with our firefighter of the year, we don't just give them an award. If it's a male firefighter of the year, then their spouse gets a bouquet of flowers, and they come up on stage too,
right?
Because they've sacrificed a lot for that.
Yeah, Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I've really appreciated this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you in the building, Capitol building down the street, around the corner, in the days ahead. So
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator.